Hi, this is Anis from Never Stop Trucking, joined with Phil from Move AI. He's the founder of this new concept that I haven't seen anywhere else, and I'm glad to have you here in this live stream.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Enos. Of course, my thing breaks right as we start, but
That's fine.
that's the rule.
That's fine. I can start talking until you fix it. It's totally fine.
That's good
So
enough.
okay. So Phil, here we spoke a couple of times about this new company that he's launching very soon. It's almost ready, as far as I understand. It's been tried, and it looks like everything is functioning well. But I would like to have you maybe introduce yourself to us and then explain to us the concept and what are you trying to accomplish with Move
Sure.
AI.
So, I give up. You're just gonna have to listen to the pops. I'm sorry.
It's fine.
Yeah. So I've moved a lot in my life for various reasons. Not a lot as a kid, but when I hit 18, I moved all around the world a bunch of times, and I just got sick of the process of moving. You have to find uh, a lot of logistics solutions in almost no time at all, and you're going to spend a lot of money in a short period of time when your mind is quite stressed. You know, you usually have a job that you're leaving and another job that you're starting. You might have a family, kids, pets, and you might be going a long distance. And you need to figure out everything that you own. And each item that you own oftentimes has a different solution for how it will get there. So I can't put a pet in a taxi cab, for instance. You know, there's like special channels for each of these items. So the way that you would do it is you would start researching vendors, um, going on Google, Yelp, wherever else, looking for these reviews, and you try and find ones that you would trust. But the problem with these reviews these days is that they're all fake. You know, these companies buy these reviews. Now with AI, they're all going to be made by computers. They're not even going to be real people who make these, and it really makes it difficult to find vendors that you can trust. And so what people tend to do is they ask their neighbor, like, who did you use when you moved, as if they're some sort of expert. But people really like this social connection, right? They can say, oh, this person had a good firsthand experience with them, so I might as well too. I know that that person might not mess me up. So um, that's right there. That sort of social proof and like firsthand knowledge of working with a company is really what we're trying to build. So the system that we built, it's uh, for the consumer who's moving. It's an app that you can download, and you answer some questions about your situation, and then you'll scan your house with your phone. We'll use that to create an item inventory of everything that is in your house, and then we're going to ask you what you want to do with it. So, do you want to throw that old couch away? Do you want to donate it to charity? Are you going to ship it? Do you want to put it in storage? We'll send that list to you to review very easily, so you don't need to walk around your house with like a clipboard anymore, writing everything down. And once that's approved, we'll take that information to vendors, and I'll message them and say, hey, I have a customer who's in your service area. It would be great if we could chat about you giving them a quote. And the vendor takes all the information. We'll ask just about every question you would need to know up front. Everything from whether the property has uh, available parking, whether you need to get a parking permit, we can help do that. Are there stairs? What are the, like, what's the length of the hallway? Um, does your property need a certificate of insurance? Like every logistical question that you would need as a vendor to do the job well and to quote it accurately, we're going to provide you up front. So then the vendors go into our system, put in a quote, and then the customer will see that in their app, and they can choose between, you know, 1 to 3 quotes. So the vendors that are in our service areas, they're not competing with the entire internet. We're launching small, so in the 9 major tech cities right now: Seattle, San Francisco, LA, Chicago, Austin, Texas. Boston, Massachusetts, New York, Washington, D.C., and Miami.
Oh wow.
So in each of those cities, we have a small handful of vendors that we have worked with that have done great jobs for our customers, and we'll continually send them jobs. So essentially, I use AI to move myself very easily because I've done this too many times. I'm just over it. So now that I've built this thing, it seems like other people have wanted to use it too, and they love it. We haven't launched yet, but we've been doing very early test customers, probably about 20 to 30 of them, and um, they say things like it was like having Jarvis from Iron Man sort out my life, or um, it's not just AI either. There's a human element to this. So I had a customer who approached us. He went to a vendor initially, got a quote to move his office from LA to Chicago. The quote was like $9,000. He agreed, but he didn't know that he went to a broker, and the broker resold the job to a carrier without really having much information. When the carrier arrived, they said this is going to be more than $9,000, and so they told him it'll be $12,000. And then they loaded his stuff onto a truck. They didn't even give him a bill of lading, and they put his stuff in storage, and essentially sent him a message that said, if you want us to take your stuff to Chicago, it's going to be $28,000 now. And so this customer came to me and said, what the hell? And so that's when I got involved. I interfaced with the broker, and we ran our process to find him a new vendor, and it ended up costing like 13 grand. So one of the things that our system does well, like I mentioned earlier, that neighbor who used somebody to move that you might ask, who you used. Every move that we do in our system gets fed back into the AI. So we're going to know that this vendor on average shows up 10 minutes late, that this vendor tends to charge trailing fees of 30% more than the quote. So now the next customer that comes along, we're going to be able to upfront set the right expectations for that next customer. We can say this customer's quote is 8,000, but historically it's usually 12. And so that's the system we're building. We're pretty excited about it. And I think AI is interesting. It's going to upend the world. Moving industry, I think, is safe for a while, until there are at least, robots able to lift and pack boxes. I think that'll be a while. And so I'm trying to use it to just make the back office and the coordination process a lot easier. I think, moving companies, especially household goods companies, the largest player only has 5% of the market. And I think with AI, we can create a network of vendors where the customers essentially deal with us, and the vendors also deal with us. And by sitting in the middle, we can set better standards of service and provide everybody a better experience. We'll pay the vendors faster. The customers will have less questions. We'll be able to, manage trust and reputation better than anybody else, because we're going to be in the loop rather than just at the end when we ask you for a review. And there's a lot of other cool tricks that we have up our sleeves, but I'm curious if you have any questions, right off the bat.
Oh, I have a lot of questions. So when you mentioned that you moved a lot, and that gave you an idea on how to make it easier for other people to complete their moves, I remembered, because where I come from, it's not
Where's
really.
that?
I'm from Bosnia,
Okay.
which is in
Yep.
southeastern Europe.
I remember. I'm going, actually. Kosovo and Bosnia. I'm going to do like a trip
Oh,
in
really?
the fall, yeah.
You're
So
you're going this year?
you'll have to give me some places to
Oh,
go.
I will
Okay.
definitely. Nice. Okay, cool. We can talk about it later. But anyway, you'll notice over there that people are more traditional, uh, people are conservative, and people don't move, right? People don't move, like especially if you have your own house, or it's built on a property that you inherited from your great grandfathers, So it's not customary to move a lot. And I remember because of the war, by the time I was 18, we moved, I think, around 9 to 10 times, and we moved to different countries. And it was it's a big change. And when you uh, like moving, like what you're doing, this is great, but there's so much to moving. It's not just the things, the furniture. It has an emotional effect on everyone. Like it's a new life. So how, like your app or your program, does it deal with any of that? Like it could be a good marketing,
Yeah. So
you
we
know.
actually want to build. Um, I think moving is the start of what we're trying to build. Um, we ultimately want to do every service and product, and we want to be able to control the reputation and help people find good vendors easily. I think starting with moving makes a lot of sense because, like you mentioned, when you move, you're kind of transplanting your life, right? It's not just putting your stuff in boxes and driving it to a new location. You need a new doctor, you need a new mechanic, a vet. Maybe you need a roof, a bank account, insurance. Maybe you need a house, a car, right? There's an endless list of things that you need when you're moving. And I think when you move, all of these decisions are kind of up in the air, and you can influence them if you build trust with somebody. So that's what we've done. We come into somebody's life when they're moving, and we help them in a way that really adds value to them. I've had people say things like, "I really don't know how I would have done this without you. Like I just had so much going on." So what I want to do is start with the basics. Moving consists of packing, loading, transporting, unloading, and unpacking. We're also going to do junk removal because a lot of vendors do that, and it seems like a lot of customers tend to throw things away when they're moving. From there, we want to do house cleaning. I want to do handyman to help you hang a TV, to maybe an electrician to install a ceiling fan or a light. And then I think we're going to branch out into other home services. So, as you're moving, we help you out. And, you know, you're not trusting our recommendations, you're trusting the process that we run. So I had a customer moving from San Francisco to New York City. He spent, I think, 6,000, maybe 7,000, a little less on a move. And then he spent another 11,000 or 12,000 on extra stuff, which is interesting because I've always read this statistic that people who move spend $400 billion in the year after a move. They buy furniture, they put down hardwood floors, they buy a new roof. Lots of very large purchases happen in the year following a move. And I think we want to be there to kind of help that customer along and use AI to connect everybody.
Yeah, so you can, based on the experience, your previous experience and the services that you have used, you can connect them to a lot of those services and make it easier for them. And I wonder, these big prices, these large moving rates, is it worth it? I mean, I understand there are people with a lot of furniture, maybe some expensive furniture, some emotional um, uh, values. But is it like the quote for $28,000 to move
That was a
someone?
company. I mean, they had 50 desks, and it was a large move, but not that
Oh,
large.
that was a
Obviously,
company.
yeah,
Okay,
that was a company.
okay, that's different.
But that's an interesting question you bring up. A lot of people own IKEA furniture that might cost $100, and it probably would be better for you to either donate that or sell it on Craigslist and then buy it on the other side. We're not there yet, but in the next probably 6 months, we should be, where we'll be able to tell you from that item inventory that you create with your phone from scanning your house how much it would cost to ship each item. And then you can make the determination yourself whether that's worth it to you.
Right. So you're not gonna tell them like, dude, it's not even worth it. Just throw it away. But
I,
it's gonna be in a
essentially,
nicer way.
yeah. I mean, essentially, when you're moving, you have a few problems, right? You need to know what the total volume and weight is. And to do that, I need to know everything that you own. And to do that is very tedious, right? You have to walk around and write everything down. So we're using AI to do that in about 5, maybe 10 minutes of a user's effort. it'll take a little bit of time on our end to like human check the results and make sure there's no errors. But once you have that list is used to determine how big of a truck you're going to need, how much packing and everything is going to cost. And right in that list where we give you your inventory, we're going to just tell you, to ship this to where you're going, it's going to cost between this much and this much. And then for each item, you're able to tell us what you want to do with it: trash it, donate it, sell it, move it. And putting these numbers in front of users' faces, I think, will probably shrink the amount of stuff that they move when they realize that they're paying $200 to ship their $100 chair or bed or whatever. And then I don't know, maybe I start selling furniture on the internet because everybody that moves has all this stuff they need to get rid of, and there's no easy solution for that one either. That's like a separate company.
Right. And then, as I mentioned earlier, when we met today, I made some searches online to see what's out there, if someone else is already out there, because it seems like anything you wanted to start today, there is like 10 other companies that are already in it. And I'm sure once you start this, there is going to be others that are trying to copy you. And I guess in that case, you have to just try to stay ahead of them and try to innovate and just do a lot of new testing to see like what else you can implement in your services that they don't offer. So what advantage does that give to you? And not just like, because we are this is a transportation channel, it's trucking, freight brokerage, dispatching. So this is not what we usually deal with, but it's very much connected. So what do you think, what's something that you can tell us, like how to stay ahead of the competition, right? That would be my question.
Well, I want to address the first thing you said. We do have competitors. They're just a little older and they don't have technology. So, on one hand, you have traditional relocation management companies. I don't necessarily view them as competitors because maybe in some aspects, but I don't have a desire to be a relocation management company. I'm not going to sell your house, for instance. That's a large part of their revenue. And there are other startups. One company was called Shift Moving. They raised a lot of money and then they went out of business. And I was really kind of curious about this. And it turns out, there were some issues inside the company that caused it to go under. But the idea was proven. Like, people want this very easy way to move and get a bunch of quotes from vetted vendors. Now, they didn't use as much technology as we have. So I don't want to make it sound like we're doing something totally new, right? We're just doing something that has been around in a better way. There are other companies as well that do this, but within certain niches. So some of them will target multifamily real estate buildings, helping those tenants move between buildings. To your question about helping these people stay ahead, it sounds like you guys, some of your audience has box trucks. I think if you have a box truck, what I would do is apply for your authority for moving household goods on the Department of Transportation's website. Get insurance, it's not much. And if you're in good standing, it's really easy to start a moving company. It will be 10 to 20 years before you have like R2D2 or C3PO coming into your house to pack boxes and move them. And I know that's wild to say that that's coming in 10 years, but that is the current census right now among people who are in tech. There's billions of dollars being invested in these humanoid robots. And if you think about the iPhone, it's, only a little bit more than 10 years old, 15 maybe. And we went from having no phones to our lives connected to this thing. And I think robots will follow a similar trajectory. But in the meantime, what I would do is get your authority, get your company in good standing, and join our network. We take a 10% commission. We'll just start giving you jobs. If you do a good job, we'll give you more jobs. If you do a bad job, then you go to the bottom of the pile. It's like king of the hill. So
now as we already talked about this, your company, this is not a brokerage. You are a
We're
middleman.
we're in the gray area. I thought we were a brokerage. I paid a lawyer a lot of money to tell us that we needed to register with, um, California, for instance. But then I called California to register. I had discussions with, I think, 3 people there who are responsible for regulating brokers, and they told me, "You're not a broker. You're marketing." So I said, "Can I get that in writing?" And they said, "No, because we don't do that." And I said, "Fine. Well, I'm just going to go on the assumption that we are marketing." Similar to how Uber was treated with taxi cabs, they didn't need medallions. It was like different. I think that's kind of the area that we fall into with moving. And, if regulators ever come at me in the future, I have all these conversations documented, and we'll have discussions then. But my understanding is, because we don't take the money, it goes to a third party middleman. That excludes us from the brokerage rules, as far as I
Okay.
know.
So yeah, because a broker, for example, like if you're shipping a load and you contact a shipper and the shipper pays you, and then you pay the carrier, then you are a broker,
Yeah.
right?
So in this case, we have tools that the customer would use to contact the vendors. The vendors would give a bill to the customer. The customer would pay that bill using our platform, but it's not coming to us. I'm not paying the broker. The customer would be paying I'm not paying the carriers. The customer would be paying the carriers.
Okay.
So
And the
it's a
platform lets you keep the
yeah,
10%.
yeah,
Okay. Okay, I got it. Yeah. So in that case, yeah,
gray area, right?
yeah,
I don't know what the answer is. I've tried, but I'm not spending any more money on
yeah.
lawyers. I'm kind
Well,
of over this.
well, the reason why I'm asking that, there are several reasons. First reason is that a lot of brokers, well, most brokers, especially now because of the fraud and cargo theft and other things, they have a lot of requirements, and they won't take just anyone to work with as a carrier, especially a brand new carrier. And when you said go register your authority, or if someone already has one, so in your case, it would not be a requirement that your authorities like all
Older.
3 months old or 6 months old, something like that.
What I would say is, we have very limited space in our network right now. Right, we're taking a handful of vendors in each city that we support. So we're going to take the best vendors that we have. But as we grow, we'll be able to, um, expand from those 5-star vendors who've been around forever down the chain to the vendors who are a little newer. I suspect as we do that, we will have issues with fraud, and we'll have to implement systems to prevent that. Um, First and foremost, the customer experience, the person who's moving, is what we're focused on. So, I don't want anybody creating a moving company, stealing somebody's stuff, and getting paid. In our case, the money will not be released to the vendor until the customer has their stuff, and the money is taken upfront from the customer. So it's sitting in that, third party um, system, essentially waiting for the customer to say they did what they said. Um, we think that'll help a bit, but the other thing that we're relying on a lot is the reputation among the vendors that we have. So they've recommended other vendors to work with. If you are a vendor who is in our system and you've done great for a very long time, and you want to bring somebody in, um, and you're willing to stake your reputation on our system for that person, then we might have more leeway in the future. But we're just so small and so new that these are big company problems. Question to Phil about scanning the home to create an item inventory. How safe is that data kept? Imagine how the scans can be used if accessed by the wrong people. Yeah, it's a great question. I could use marketing lingo by saying we use military grade encryption and all these kinds of things, but there are ways to keep it safe. You encrypt it end to end. You have really strict agreements with vendors so that when they see the data, that they're beholden to certain terms and clauses and penalties. We're not emailing this stuff around. The vendors need to log into our system using an account that they've already been vetted and approved for. We know who these vendors are, and there's nothing stopping them from copying all of these photos to their own server and then doing something with it. But then I think that would be a business solution. As far as like a hacker in Russia or China coming along, if it's a nation state and they want their data, you're going to get it. They're just too big, too good. But for most people, for reasonable companies, there are just best practices you can use to encrypt your database and encrypt data to make sure it's not accessible. Oddly, this was a question I thought a lot of people would have early on when we were starting this, and I don't think a single person has asked this who's moving. And I wonder if they're just so overwhelmed with the process of moving that they don't know what to do. Now, I will say there are also companies that do AI surveys that are remote, and they've been able to keep it secure for a long time. Like one company called Yembo comes to mind. They work with most of the large moving companies, and there have been no issues as far as I'm aware.
Okay. Well, is there a way to convert that data if you are scanning around your house to convert it to to 3D images where it's not a photo per se, but you know what
Yep,
I'm saying?
there is.
Would that
We don't
help?
we don't do that because we just haven't had a need for it. Anything that we collect is collected strictly for helping coordinate what needs to go where, and to give a vendor a sense of the job that they're getting themselves into, so they can quote accurately. Um, Yembo is this company. I don't want to talk about them a ton, but they will do 3D scans. I think it's like extra. So if you're a vendor and you want that 3D scan, you could do that. But yeah, I mean, the technology is there. From a video, I could create a 3D rendering. That's just true about any video that you send me. So I could stand up in any place, go like this, and it uses photogrammetry, so the different angles of the phone to determine size, distance.
Well, unfortunately, I'm not really a privacy um, nerd because I understand that anywhere you go, there is no privacy anymore. You go outside, there are cameras all over. We have, Google Satellite, Google Street View. We have smart devices in our phones, and we willingly put them there that can listen and that do listen, that are designed to listen, like Alexa or Google Home. Um, Also, like when you buy a house, or if you sell a house, if you go to Zillow or Trulia.com, you can still see all most of those houses that have been sold, and you can see the inside of them. And sometimes, like, there is a way to contact them and ask them to remove those images, but a lot of times they won't even respond, and it's very hard to get them off. So right now there is really no privacy anymore, and I don't know if I would be concerned with, like, what are they gonna, like, I see a picture of boat behind you. What am I gonna do with that?
Yeah. I think it's less about the specifics that you own and more about building a profile about who you are. You got a call. Okay. If I know everything that you own, that's essentially what Google has right now. They have all your emails. They know what you buy. They really know what you own. And that's, I think, the bigger risk, because then, they know you on a deeper level. As far as the layout of your house, I don't really know how that would be useful for a bad actor. It is uncomfortable to know that, like, someone's in my house and they see my dirty bedroom and all the clothes that haven't
Yeah.
been washed. But I think, yeah, it's not as big of an issue as I thought. And
Okay.
we only keep the data long enough to get the job done. I'm not sitting on this stuff. It's like a huge liability. So it's,
So once the job is done, then it gets erased.
yeah, we'll keep the metadata. So we'll know that, like, you shipped a couch. We'll know that the couch was this big and weighed this much, but that's all we're keeping. We're not keeping the raw data around.
Okay. And then we do have a question from Ken, but let me just give me, before I bring it up here, I wanted to ask you, because we were talking about carriers earlier. Um, so what do you need? Like, if you have your own box truck, you do have to have an authority,
Yep.
carrier authority, in order to work with you, right?
Yep.
Okay. What else do you need?
So we're focusing on long distance moves right now. So if you're in state, Um, that'll be a little bit before we're able to do those. Each state has their own rules, and I haven't had time to go through 50 state house laws to figure out, compliance. But interstate, um, go to the Department of Transportation, get your DOT number, your MC number. You need your business to be in good standing, so that would be a business certificate from whatever state you're in. You're going to need cargo insurance, probably general liability insurance. When you sign up on the site, it'll ask you for these, and we'll ask you to define a service area. So um, we've had a more than a few companies move and compete against larger, uh, you know, companies like United, Atlas, Mayflower. Um, the full van. Um, for people who are moving, a lot of times those solutions aren't good because the delivery date's unpredictable. They could take 30 days to get you your stuff. They're going to drive up and down the country all around, and you're just like some small portion of that truck. What I've found is people are willing to pay more to get their stuff predictably. And that means essentially most of our jobs look like this. Somebody with a box truck um, gets a customer. There are labor lists online where you can hire people to pack and load your stuff for a day rate. They're background checked already on these lists, and you can contact them and say, I'll give you 250, 300 for a day. The job is to come and pack this person's house and load the truck. So you as a box truck owner and driver get these people, show up, do the job, and then you drive it to wherever they need. You'll stay in hotels, you'll pay for the gas, the truck rental, whatever. And then when you arrive at the other destination, you use the list again to find people to unpack the truck and to unpack the house. So it really is. It was actually surprising to me. I thought moving companies had people on their payroll, and that's the moving company. But it seems like most moving companies are like an owner operator, a few drivers, a few trucks, and then the actual labor to pack and load and unload comes from these labor networks that are out there. So, to get going, I think it's quite easy. You go to the website, sign up, give us the information we ask for. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me. And then, it'll be a little bit, month, maybe two, before we start getting customers. But we'll start sending to you, and you can do the jobs. And yeah, I mean, moving is not rocket science, right? I think a lot of it's actually a service business where, you're kind of the interface for this person who's moving, and you need to be friendly, clean. Don't walk in an oil puddle before you walk in someone's house. There's the standards of service are not huge. You're not creating like a fine dining dish. It's I think most people could do it if they wanted to. And the steps I gave you are pretty much all you need to do to get going.
You have to be strong and careful.
Or just hire more people. But yeah, careful is good.
Well, so yeah, when I see the trucks on the road, for example, two men and a truck, that sounds like something that would be like an old-fashioned way of moving. You hire these people, two people come, or three of them. They put your stuff in the truck, they deliver it, and they unload it. But it seems like that's not going on anymore, especially like if you're doing it over the road and you have a big semi-trailer, and they would usually probably just bring it to their hub and then offload it to a smaller truck, and then that truck might have a crew, or like you said, they might hire a third-party vendor. So if you are a box truck owner and you want to do something like that, so basically you don't have to do any moving, any lifting, you're just driving, right?
Pretty much. The companies that you just mentioned, a lot of times what they'll do is they'll load a truck, bring it to a warehouse, and then it'll sit in that warehouse until they have a full load going to a destination. And that's where the customer gets stuck sometimes. Their stuff will sit there. They'll say, oh, maybe we can get it to you in 2 weeks. Maybe we can get it to you in a month. In the event that you're able to load the trailer directly from your property, they still aren't going direct. They're going to go Like from LA, they went to Washington and then to Texas and then to Chicago, right? And so it does take time and it is unpredictable. But what I've realized is that people want that predictability, right? Because every day they don't have their stuff, they're paying for a hotel, they're paying for a rental car. Um, it costs money. And when you factor all that in, it sometimes makes sense to just pay a smaller box truck, like a 26-foot, 30 something, to drive it direct. You know, the drivers of these trucks stay in cheap hotels, $100 a night, and you just tack it onto the rate. And then, you know, if a lot of times people won't even drive their own trucks, they'll fly to the destination. They will rent a Penske. Uh, that gets insured under their own insurance. They'll hire local labor. They'll do the job. Then they'll drive the Penske to the destination. They'll find another local labor to unload. They'll return the Penske truck and they'll fly home. And that is still cheaper than going with some of these larger moving companies if you're a
S-
box truck owner and you're a hustler.
So you could technically, is that, I mean, legal, or will anyone, like Bill Penske, let you do that? I mean,
I'm not a carrier. I assume you're allowed to do that though, because we've had several vendors doing this with no issue. I mean, when you
wow,
have a truck, you're able to add it as a subcontractor or something
right.
like that,
Yeah.
and it should be carried under your authority.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's different if they rent a truck to their authority or to their company. But I'm saying like you can't just go out and rent a U-Haul truck like privately and then
No,
do
no, no.
this
You,
as
you need a company.
yeah,
You have to have a corporate structure. You have to have a business
yeah,
license. You have to have cargo insurance. You have to
yeah.
have general liability. If you have all these things, I think that approach is open. Another interesting way that people have been moving is with pods. Because household goods carriers cost more money because of regulation. There's been a strong interest in people trying to ship household goods as freight.
Hmm.
Um, Now, you're generally not allowed to do that because the insurance is less. And so that's why these companies like Zippy Shell or Pods have popped up. Because once you get this container dropped off in front of your house, um, that's essentially treated as freight. They have their own insurance, which will insure everything on the inside against, you know, droppage, loss, fire, flood, that kind of thing. Um, but it is a different model, and I think there are a lot of people who are trying to find ways to move people better, cheaper, faster than what's been done in the past.
So pods are treated as regular freight.
My understanding, I don't run pods, but that is my understanding, is they're able to throw these pods on the back of like a traditional flatbed truck and ship them across the country at a much lower rate per mile.
Okay, okay. What is the difference between household goods and regular authority or
Property.
way of business and all of the regulations? So why do they regulate them different? Just because it's property, someone else's?
It's regulated differently because you're dealing with somebody's life. In the event that a freight truck goes into a river, I think they owe you 20 or 30 cents per pound. And then, you know, you could lose your entire life and they say, here's $1,000 or $2,000. And it's not good enough for humans who are moving. And the government, I think, over years of having bad things happen, have kind of stepped in and set certain regulations. Now, the standard for household goods insurance is only 60 cents per pound. So it's not much better. You know, like instead of $2,000 for all your stuff, I'll give you $6,000. Um, but that's the rule. And so that extra cost of insurance does get passed to the customer. And as a result, you tend to have people treat household goods with much more respect. I mean, I'm sure you've seen items flying down the highway on a truck that aren't even strapped down and flying off. And like,
Oh
you
yeah,
can't have that happen with, you know, grandma's urn.
yeah. That's what's great about America. You can drive down the road and get some furniture for your house. Like, hey, I might need a sofa. Let me just, and then oh, hey, here's a sofa. You know, like it's
Free.
crazy.
Yeah. If you're an individual though, I think you can do things differently than if you were a company. So like if you're an individual and you wanted to put all your stuff on a pallet and ship that pallet, I think you could use
Okay,
like a code called like freight of any kind or something. I don't do this, but you know, there are
yeah,
ways for individuals to ship their stuff as freight.
okay,
But yeah, generally it's just frowned upon because the standards of service are much different. Phil
okay.
has learned that taking a fee from the customer makes him a broker. Easier to provide the platform that the service providers can pay to join. Is that's possible? Um, Maybe at scale. I think the AI really lets us align incentives properly for once. Um, I don't want to charge per lead. I don't want to charge to join a platform, because if we don't add any value, then you paid me for nothing. Uh, the new models for companies with AI is they're going to capture commissions from successfully completing jobs. And I think that's what we want to stay focused on is if the customer has a good move, then I get paid. If they don't, um, I'm totally open to just giving them my commission back and just say, well, we'll improve and learn for next time.
Okay.
Um, but I think the question is a little off, though. I don't think we are a broker. We're in this weird gray area. We've tried to register with states, and they've rejected our registrations, explicitly telling us we're not a broker. And I went through meetings with them for probably an hour, explaining all the intricacies and nuances of our system, and they will not even let me register. So
Yeah. Yeah.
for whatever reason, we're gray area right now.
You probably are not then. And then the more I think about it, then because you're not, uh, you're just a middleman, and you're connecting these people together, and you're not part of the transaction. That's very important
We're just the
factor.
platform. So the
Yeah.
customers are transacting with vendors. We're not a party to the agreement. Customers do. I mean, if you go on Yelp, you find a vendor you like, you reach out to them, you contact them, um, and book a job. I mean, Yelp isn't a broker all of a sudden.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, the
Or Angie's
vendors,
List, or
yeah. So the vendors are paying us to facilitate payments over the platform,
okay.
and that's where we're getting our commission. So it's an ease of use layer only, essentially.
Okay. Well, that gives me an idea for something connect. And I'm sure you know a lot about transportation industry because you looked into it. And
I'm an outsider, man. I've just moved a lot, thought it sucked, and decided to fix the problem.
well,
But
no,
I'm learning stuff every day.
you,
Like we have this great guy that we work with who's been in the industry 20 years, and some of the stories he tells me, I'm just like, I never would have thought, these were issues.
yeah. Well, no. I mean, you have done your homework. I can tell that. But here's an idea. So if you're in this gray area and you're a platform where you can connect vendors and customers, so why not have that same model here in transportation, in a regular transportation, where we deal with freight brokerages? We have shippers, brokerages, and carriers. And the way that works is like simplified is that shippers pay a broker a fee, and then shippers will find a carrier to transport their load, right? So why not have a platform where a shipper can go and post their load, and carriers will go there, and that would be much simpler to use, and for us in the same. And we don't have to, if I'm the owner of that platform, I don't have to be regulated as a carrier. But people have tried that, and I've seen some
How is
websites
this different than
claiming.
like Coyote?
Well, Coyote is a broker.
They are broker proper, because I know
Oh
they have
yeah.
a marketplace where you can log in and take loads. And
Yeah, but that's only if you're a carrier.
okay,
If you're not a carrier, you can't access that. So you have to be a carrier, and then they can you can book a load there. But there has been there have been some tries where someone would build a website and say, hey, this is we have shippers and all that, but it doesn't work very well. But if your platform can work this way, I wonder why it couldn't work. Why do we even need 27,000 brokers?
I'm sure for freight, there's regulations. There is an interesting company that I keep trying to look up on my phone, but then it messes the TV up. Essentially, what they've done. Are you familiar with the concept of AI agents?
AI agents, not sure. No.
Okay, so there have been some pretty cool demos from tech companies where agents are able. They're like ChatGPT essentially, and they're able to place phone calls. They're able to send text messages and emails, but they're now becoming more capable where they can actually solve complicated tasks. So you could say, for instance, Uh, Go do research and find me a company to do something. And the agent will go to the web and search all around and look at reviews and find something and reach out and contact them through their form. So that's something that's being done right now. So there is a company, I've again forgot the name, but what they'll do is if you're a shipper and you have, I think their threshold is like if you're shipping $1 million a year or more, they'll work with you. But you would pay them to give access to these agents, and these agents will sit in your Slack as a company in your email, and you'll be able to just talk to them like a coworker. And you could say, I need to ship 4 pallets of whatever from here to there. You know, you can input the constraints using normal natural language. You're not filling out forms. It's just like you're talking to a human. And then they'll say, okay, got it. And then they are going to go reach out to these vendors, do the research, find the carriers, call around, see who has capacity or availability. And then once they're able to confirm, then the bot will connect the shipper and the carrier for the load to finish sorting it out. And they have a pricing model that I think is similar to mine, where they do take a commission off of each shipment, but it's not technically a broker because the shipper is doing this and the agent is just a tool. So I do think those are coming. They're already here. They're just not super prevalent. I have heard some carriers don't even pick up the phone when they know it's a robot. So it'll be interesting to see how the industry adopts this, or whether they just say, I'm not talking to any robots. But, give it time and you won't be able to tell the difference. Again, think of the first iPhone until now. In 2 years, in 5 years, it'll be like talking to a human who's just like you or me.
Yeah. So these AI agents are like your little minions, right?
Yeah.
They just go around, do work for you. We deal with AI a lot right now. We have Emro here. We are doing everything together here. He knows a lot more about the technology. He was telling me the other day, and I was going to ask you that question because I kind of connected it to what you're doing. Chat GPT right now has a new option, and this one is very expensive. It's like $200 a
Yeah,
month or so.
ChatGPT Pro. Yep.
And well, we do have the Chat GPT 4.0, but this one is like even more advanced. And now it can do all of it. It can set up, like it can go out and look for a restaurant. It can set
Yep.
up.
That's called Operator. That's what I was mentioning earlier.
That's what it is.
They launched what I think is like the first real agent. It can actually solve tasks for you. It can find restaurants, call around for availability, send messages for, all the things that a person would do. And I think this is where I am personally a little worried. And I think people in tech, there's no way to stop this. Like, I think about this a lot. Like, the AI is coming. It's almost like we are creating another life form. And this life form is going to be much, much smarter than any human ever. They're going to know everything that's ever happened. They're going to be much faster, able to work 24 hours a day for like no money. And if you think about our economy and all the reason I'm paying so much money for certain products or services, a lot of that is because there's intellectual labor that goes into it, like figuring out how to do something. And then the cost of these employees has to get recouped by selling the product. But if all these products are now made by agents and they only have few humans, the price of goods should go way down. But then I don't know what we do for work anywhere. Like, the people in tech are talking about futures where we have to renegotiate the social contract. Like, that's crazy. All these robots do everything. You have, C3PO or R2D2, whatever, going around in billions of them, working in warehouses, driving trucks or driverless cars will probably drive themselves. You'll have robots in your house to make food and clean up after you. And I'm sure there will be companies that start and you can rent a robot from them for $500 a month. But in exchange for that, you get a slave, essentially. And I think a lot of people can't see beyond a year in the future anymore. Like, this is the first time in tech where I don't know how this is going to play out. Uh, this is a trucking podcast, but people in tech talk a lot about AI alignment. Like, how do we make sure that these AIs do things that are good for humans and not things they just mistakenly think they should do because there was like an error in programming? And I think technology that we build as humans should enrich our lives and make our lives better. And this is one of the few times where I think, I'm actually quite unsure of how this will work. Like, will it actually benefit us? We don't know. But there is such demand for cheaper, better, faster. It's just in our nature that, and these AIs are so broad and capable, especially in the coming decade, that, I think we're going to have to figure out what we're going to do every day.
Yeah.
Nobody knows.
Well, we are already seeing a lot of trucking companies and freight brokerages implementing uh, those in their daily operations. We do have phone calls already calling us, and I can tell it's AI. Sometimes when you call on a load, AI will answer, and there are some brokers that they're already known for that. But the problem is, you call them and they tell you about the load, and you tell them, yeah, this is going to work. They check you out, check your MC number, all of that, and then when you negotiate the price, then they still have to connect you to a human.
Yeah. Do you know why that is?
Why?
um, there was a Supreme Court case, or there was a court case where I think it was an airline, and they put a chat bot on their website, and somebody was able to get the chat bot to say that the flight was free,
Oh,
and the company had to honor that.
okay.
So if the AI makes a mistake, the company's on the hook for it. And so I think
So they
that's
have
why
to honor.
for the foreseeable future, they're always going to have a human involved when pricing's involved.
And that's fine. I like that. That's I'm okay for it. But then you get a person, like a random person that doesn't even know what you already spoke to the AI, and then they you have to go all over from the beginning with them, right? And that's frustrating. That just like I wish there was a way for them, and I'm sure in the future they will have that a way of knowing like whatever was said, whatever was agreed, and they can just confirm it. But right now uh, it's for us carriers and brokers, it's just frustrating. Sometimes you get an automatic response by email. When you email someone about a load, they will respond to you and respond, and then they will tell you about the load. You can see, you can notice that they are AI, and I really don't care. It's fine with me as long as I get a good rate. As long if there is a problem down the road, we have to reach out to someone and resolve that problem. As long as we can do that, I'm totally fine with that.
So let me
I
ask you
don't
about
mind.
that. So the way it seems to work for logistics is the shipper sets the rate and then they find a carrier who's willing to accept it. Is that right?
No, they usually most shippers will work with brokers,
Okay.
and they will because um, brokers are the ones who have access to thousands of carriers. Shippers don't. So if a shipper has like two or three carriers that they work with, it's hard for them to cover all of their freight because those carriers might not have enough.
But are the carriers setting the rate, or is the shipper and the broker setting the rate?
We don't know. Like that's a good question.
Because like
It
what we're doing is I'm just going to tell you everything that needs to be done, and then you, as the carrier, tell me how much it's going to cost the customer.
Nope.
Because I've heard of people saying, "Well, will you pay me $5,000 for this one?" And I'm like, "You tell me. I don't know what it costs. You tell me what your price is. I'm going to ask other people the same question, and if they're all like $5,000, I'll assume that that's the rate."
I
But
wish it
sometimes
was.
it's 6,000, sometimes it's 18,000, and then if the customer sees that, they're going to get more quotes, and eventually, it'll settle on like a little price band, and they'll know
Yeah.
that that's actually probably a good rate.
I wish it was that simple here. It's not. Trucking rates are based on markets, and the shippers will go out and they have ways of seeing how many trucks are available in certain areas, and based on that, they can say, "Hey, there are so many trucks over there. We're gonna just send ship our freight for cheap." Uh, it's it's not a fair way of doing business, but it's what it is. Like it's supply and demand.
I don't
That's what
like
they.
the it is what it is. Like that's why we're doing this. We're changing things,
It's
right?
well.
I mean, it's
Thank you,
crazy to me
thank you.
that like um it's crazy to me that a shipper contacts a broker, the broker will quote the shipper a price, and then that broker tries to essentially get the cheapest possible carrier so they can take the profit in the difference. And that needs to go away because I've heard horror stories of shippers being promised a rate and then it changes, or you're a carrier and you just get garbage per mile costs, prices to do things that. And I understand, if you're a carrier and you're going to have a dead load or an empty load driving back to your origin, you might just take a rate that wouldn't otherwise be something you would accept because it's better than nothing. But I think that it just messes up the incentives completely. And I can understand why brokers get a bad reputation sitting in between this. So, I'm hoping to essentially have really efficient technology sitting in the middle, connecting shippers directly with carriers, and then we're just like a technology layer.
Okay. Well, imagine if you go to Best Buy and you want to buy a TV, right? And there is a TV that costs $1,000. The whoever made it, Sony, Philips, whoever, they set their price
Yep.
based on many factors, right? This is our price. Take it or leave it. And you go there, okay, well, I'll take this one. I'm not gonna that I like, what this TV has to offer, and I take it. It's in our industry, it's the opposite, right? I go inside the Best Buy and I see a lot of TVs, and I'm like, man, these TVs are like, there's a lot of them. You know what, Sonny? I'll give you 500 for this TV, and like it costs them 700 just to build it. That's how it works here, and that's very. And then when you talk to brokers, brokers have the advantage because they are trained, right? They like, I'm just a carrier. I'm a small carrier. We have 10 trucks, and I'm self-taught, right? I didn't go to school for this. I'm self-taught. English is not even my first language, and somehow we're managing, right? With these big brokerages, they invest a lot of money in training their employees, in educating, like how to do all of that, and they do it in a very professional way. With us, it's just like we're old school. uh, so they have a lot of excuses on why this is like that, like uh, like they try to explain as the supply and demand, how it works, the markets, that we couldn't do it without brokers because essentially they are the ones that are vetting carriers, they are the ones that are arranging
Oh.
pickups, like we have the ways, we have the software, you
Sounds like
guys
an
are.
AI could do all of that.
It could, yeah, and it will happen. But then I have a feeling that shippers, like let's say there's a load that a shipper wants to move for $1,000. They give it to the broker. Brokers quotes, they quote us like 700 or 800, whatever, and then they take the difference. Once the shippers hear that the brokers are covering for 800, then the shippers are give it to the AI and say, hey, here's a load for 800. So I don't know like how that's gonna work.
It'll play out. I think there's a phrase, the future is already here, it's just unevenly distributed. And if you look at San Francisco compared to Afghanistan, I think you'll see that that's true. um, Technology tends to start in places like San Francisco or other areas that can benefit greatly from it, and then it tends to trickle down into other industries. When I started this company, I saw a list of industries that will be impacted by AI, and moving is at the absolute bottom.
Hmm.
Um, and that's why I went to this corner of the sandbox, partially because I felt like you could do something there, and I didn't really know what the capabilities of AI would be. So I didn't want to do something that I work on for 2 years, and then in year 3, OpenAI releases a new model, and now I'm out of business. So
Hmm.
I think in moving, you guys are safe for as long as anybody is, I guess I would say. But like I mentioned earlier, like I think AI is just going to be radically different society if nobody has to work. And um, I don't even know what that's going to look like, but we'll have to figure it out as we go.
Okay. Well, I wanted just to mention something about what you said before about AI, but we have a couple of comments, and I'm going to show both of them. They're connected from same person, Cool Dispatch. So this is the first comment here.
Really confident it's thoroughly tested and foolproof. Nothing's foolproof. Glad you see polished it, but I do not trust it. We have a human involved to facilitate certain things. You know, we may reach out and ask the vendor to send a certificate of insurance to a property. Like, right? Nothing's foolproof, but give it time. And if it happens, the new systems that are being built, they're being built on different principles. So when you're writing a traditional software program, website, app, it's really like plumbing, to be honest with you. You take data from one place, you run it through a pipe, you might change the data or transform it slightly, but then you deliver it to a different pipe and then you display it. Like that's programming in a nutshell. It's very predictable. If I put in one and I add one, it's going to give me two on the other end, right? With these AI models, they're not predictable. So the way that you would write software before is you would have a way to catch errors and then correct the errors. But it was like, if this happens, then I will do this, right? You're giving it rules. With AI, you could say 1+1 = 2 and see what the AI says, and the AI might tell you a joke. Like that's not really what I wanted, right? The output's not predictable. And so the systems that are being built, it's kind of like putting guardrails up around the AI. So you would say, like, do not talk about pricing at all, period, full stop, or I will unplug you. And if
I
you
will end you.
yeah, if you threaten the AI, it will adhere to rules better than if you don't threaten it. And so, like, there was no threatening when I'm talking about the old way of doing apps, you know. So I think, you know, it will take time to figure out how to build these systems, but just based on the fact that ChatGPT is about 2 years old right now, it's going to be really, really fun to watch this grow and just see. Like, people aren't even talking about programming AIs; they're talking about raising them.
Okay. Well, here is my thought on AI, and it's an uneducated thought. I'm not a professional. This is just like a simple
Nobody
man.
is. We're all brand new at this.
Okay, so here's some thinking. Now, I'm really not that scared of AI. And remember when it came out a few years ago, when everyone started talking about it, and then all of a sudden, all you were seeing on YouTube and online, like people talking about AI, like how risky it is, like what's going to happen. The world hasn't ended yet, uh, but it all depends how you train it and what you want it to do. For example, like when computers were invented, they were invented to help us, right? And same thing with AI. AI still cannot function. You still have to give it commands, and based on your commands, it will come up with a result, right? The better the better commands you have, the better input. And it's not always from the first try. You have to keep trying and polish it, right? So that tells you that you already know what you're doing. You know what you want, right? You can't be a beginner in something and then have AI come up with a really professional looking product, right? You still have to know what you're doing. And it's just that, in my opinion, it's just a tool. It's a very good tool. It can save you time. Like you like some simple tasks, like you don't have to hire additional people. You can do things much faster in that sense. But as far as taking over the world and doing things on its own, I really don't see that happening.
Right now, I'd agree with you. Long term, I would also agree with you, but probably for different reasons. But the concern is that it does have some pretty scary capabilities. They were testing an early model at OpenAI or Anthropic, I can't remember which. And my understanding was when it was running it through its test paces, trying to get it to do certain tasks and see what the outputs would be, it told it that it would be, you know, unplugged if it didn't do something. I might be mixing this up, but essentially the AI saw that and it tried to extract itself from the computer that it was on because it didn't want to be unplugged. And so it actually hacked the system by sending a command that was structured in a certain way to try and exfiltrate its code to another computer where it could live on. And that's what I think. These things are just really unpredictable because it's essentially a fancy autocomplete. But when you're doing this at the scale that they're doing it, you have these emergent behaviors that aren't programmed and they just sort of are there. And we just need to be very careful as we do this. So, I think you're right that right now I'm not worried about it like Skynet, but as the world becomes more interconnected, as AIs start talking to AIs, like your brokerage will talk to an AI at a shipper, which will talk to an AI at a carrier, and you'll just broadly program these things. There will be unintended consequences and behaviors that we just can't expect. So I wouldn't be in this if I thought it was going to end the world. Obviously, I think AI is going to bring great progress with diseases and capability to, improve a lot of really difficult problems in our society. But if I'm wrong, then it'll probably be over in an instant and we won't even know.
Right. Well, it's the way it tried to save itself. Its instincts, like a human instinct or animal instinct, and it just wanted to protect itself. You can't
Yep.
blame it for that. Same thing like with humans. That they say that the brain is your most selfish organ, uh, because there are other organs in your body that are very important, like your heart and lungs. But brain is so selfish. Like if you're trying to protect yourself from something, like you always go, this is what you do, right? You never do like protect. It's the
Yep.
brain. The brain always has to be protected. So it might be something similar to that.
I think the brain's the most interesting body part, but then I realize what's telling me that.
The brain. There you go. Okay. I also put up a poll here in the chat, and there are some votes. Do you think the AI model is the future for the trucking industry? And most people said yes, that it is the future. So yeah.
If I had to go crazy and just predict something that everyone will laugh at me for in a couple of years, because I'll be way wrong, I would say driverless cars and trucks will be here at some point. So it'll cost a lot at first, and it'll get cheaper over time. But I imagine you have humans loading these trucks. These trucks drive themselves, and then other humans unload them. I think AI will do all of the coordinating. And in 10 or 15 years, I do think we will have robots that are able to, we already have them working in warehouses, but there are very hard research problems that will prevent robots from going into the real world where things aren't predictable, like a warehouse, for a long time. Because if soon as one person gets injured from a robot, this will get shut down. So, but it will get there, in the same way, like we heard 10 years ago that driverless cars were 2 years away. And they find out that going from what they call level 4 to level 5, which is fully autonomous, is very hard, because you're essentially, you need to program a car to handle every possible edge case, and the world is just way too chaotic for that to work reliably all the time. But 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, eventually they will do it. Probably still won't be perfect, but it'll be way better than humans. This is already true about driverless cars. They drive many more millions of miles without accidents than we do. They still make mistakes, right? Sometimes things are unavoidable. 2 cars come right at you, and third's coming straight on, and you're going to get hit. And so I think you'll have probably trucks with drivers being replaced first. That is probably still a while, years. There are already companies that are doing this, but my understanding is they'll just be on highways, and the drivers still have to be in the truck to monitor it. And then when they're in the city or coming close to the destination, the human will take over, because that's the thing that the cars aren't, or the trucks aren't great at. But they can do highway driving just fine. But then they'll get better, and the trucks will be able to back into the bays, and then you'll have robots unloading them. At this point, it's just stupid to predict, because You know, I'm like, oh, all the billionaires will own all of the robots and they'll own all of the labor. But then I think like, well, if we have no money, who's going to buy all of the things that the billionaires are selling? You know, so like something is going to have to change here, and it's really hard to know what that will be.
Oh, it
So
will be more accessible. Like with any new technology, it's very expensive in the beginning, but in few years it becomes accessible to everyone. Same like with anything, anything, TVs, computers.
phones,
Uh,
internet, yep.
yeah, like now, like you have internet all over the world, and 20 years ago, you know, it was not the case. I remember here I came to United States in 2001, and then it was just like with the AOL Messenger, MSN Messenger, like all those, like that was in, like these group chats. But then I was trying to talk to someone back home, and like my wife, she stayed there. uh she couldn't come right away with me, and she was like the only person in the city that had a computer and internet. And now everyone has like 2 3 phones in their house with internet, with, it's crazy. And same thing with that, it's just gonna be
Let me ask
available.
you this question. So I was at a conference for a company in the space, like moving, relocation, whatever. And there were a bunch of CEOs of billion-dollar companies on stage, and they were asked how AI will affect their business. And they all kind of said, I don't think it will affect our business because what we do is human and irreplaceable. And I just sort of was laughing really hard in my head because it just spoke to me that they don't understand the technology and what's coming. And so I have a question for you is like, is there a common sentiment in the logistics industry about how this will affect them?
You mean like in general, or is it going to be positive or negative, or is
Maybe
it?
both. Like I mentioned that they're like, is there a fear of like robots picking up boxes and putting them out of work, or do you guys think it'll be applied in a different way? I'm curious, like not being tech people, how you think it will affect your day to day lives. You mentioned the agents already talking to it on the phone. I think that'll probably happen
Yeah,
and is happening.
I can't speak for everyone. I'm always an odd, what's the name in English, like an odd case,
Yep.
um, I'm always different. I personally don't think it's going to affect it that much. It might affect some things, but as far as driving, because that's what we do, we drive trucks, we deliver things. I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. It might change in like, I don't know if it's going to change in my lifetime or not. It probably will down the road, but not yet, because that's what we do. If you ask me about anything else in the life, then yeah, I would totally agree that it will change. AI will change, and technology will change everything in your robots, all of that. But in trucking, I just don't see it. I don't even see these electric vehicles, and I spoke about that the other day. You can have them locally, right? You can,
Yep.
uh, charge them overnight in your yard and just do it, and that's totally fine. But out there, where there is no infrastructure to charge them, and there is no easy and fast way to recharge the battery, like I just don't think it's going to happen anytime soon,
I think you're
right?
right. I got into MIT for grad school, but before I went there, I worked at MIT as well, but as like an affiliate. So I was working for the US government as a research scientist, and I went up there for a project. And I worked with a guy named Bill Mitchell who passed away. But he ran a group called the Smart Cities Group. And what you just mentioned was essentially his vision that in order for there to be electric infrastructure, like the main vision is instead of burning gas, pulling it out of the ground, fighting wars in the Middle East, shipping it over pipelines and tankers, and then burning this stuff, there's a different way. We're going to be able to centrally generate power. And right now, I know it's probably a coal power plant, but like, with time, it'll be cleaner. Wind, solar, maybe not with Trump in charge, but whatever. Nuclear. You'll be able to centrally generate this power and then distribute it to the city. where these electric vehicles will be able to be charged. But in order for this vision to work, you do need distributed infrastructure. You need every house to have a way to plug it in. In parking garages, you need to have rechargeable infrastructure. Um, I think like any technology, there's growing pains. I've seen pictures of like Tesla supercharger stations being powered by diesel generators, like really kind of funny things like that. But to your point, you're exactly right. It will take a long time to get rid of oil and gas, and I don't see a way for long haul trucking to work either, unless infrastructure changes significantly. Because they do have ways to charge batteries faster, I would say, but it makes the battery life much less because it's much more stressful for the battery, and then that means you have to replace it. So, again, if you think of this as 200 years, maybe 200 years, how long have we had oil? I don't know, a long time. You're not going to get rid of that in a year, right? It's going to
Yeah,
take
no.
a long time to get rid of it, and it'll be a transition from one to the other. But hopefully, we can do that in a way that works for everybody. I don't want to be somebody who doesn't own a car because they're all controlled by the government or like one car company. I want to be able to go on my own when I want and have complete control over where I go, and not have a computer tell me, I'm sorry, I can't drive into the shoulder right now.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, that car's broken down. Go. I'm sorry, that's illegal. Like I like autonomy. So
Yeah.
I suspect a lot of your viewers do as well. And I don't think people are going to give that up. So until we have something that's equal or greater than what we have, that's not going to be adopted.
Yeah. No, as long as this country is still on track to, like continue being based on the founding fathers' principles, not much in that sense is gonna change. People are still gonna fight it. You see a lot of things in these states, like California, maybe even on the East Coast. They're trying to innovate things, but that's why they have a lot of regulations as well, and it makes people's lives miserable. Most Americans want their freedom. This is,
Well, you're going to have it. You're going to have more freedom in the next 4 years than I think most people want, because every day he comes out with a new executive order. And I'm just like, he did what? So,
yeah, hey, at least he's doing something, right?
yeah.
Like something is happening. So we'll see whether it's gonna be bad or good, right?
But
So,
I did hear he's stopping investments in solar and wind. He does not like wind turbines. He's going
yeah,
to drill. So, I didn't vote for him, but I really hope it works. There are really smart people around him right now, from the tech world especially, that have built many billion-dollar companies, and uh, I really hope it works. I think everybody has been complaining about one thing or another for 40, 50, 60 years, and I think finally we're at this point where people are fed up and they want change, and that's why Donald Trump got elected. And he's going to try and deliver that. So I'm hopeful. Like, they always say, oh, you're left or right. I've always been politically homeless. I'm very much in the middle. And I hope he does a great job, man. I don't want to like root against him just because I didn't vote for him. But yeah, I think you guys have at least 4 more years before electric technology and batteries and all of this becomes a thing, because I think he's pushing it in the other direction currently.
yeah, he is. He's making it harder to for that to, and it's not black and white, like that. Like I'm in Michigan. Okay, I'm in Michigan, and Michigan is home to GM and Ford and Chrysler, and they have been pushing away Tesla for many years. Just like last year, finally we have a dealership here in Grand Rapids, a Tesla
Hmm.
dealership. And not until like a while ago, you couldn't even register an electric car. You didn't even have a way to fix them. People from Indiana had to come here and fix their electric vehicles. That's how much they're opposing that. So there is always going to be someone that's opposing. And I was in San Jose last year, and I see a lot of electric cars. I
Yeah,
see self-driving taxis, cabs.
those are cool. Have you ever ridden in a Waymo?
No, no, but I'm looking. 'Cause first, it took me a while to figure out what it was. Like I thought they were like the Google Street that they're recording because they have.
Yeah, similar looking.
And then oh no, these must be cabs. Then I looked it up. And sure enough, and I see people riding in them, and other cars are honking at them. I'm like, why are you honking? It's a self-driving car, you know.
I mean, this is like probably an unethical life tip, but if you ever need to get over and the car and in the other lane is a driverless car, just drive into it. It'll move out of the way.
Oh, really?
It doesn't want to get hit. Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Well, and then in their defense, if you look at sometimes, like if you read newspapers, and they would say like Tesla hit something, right? They would not say like if this was a regular car, they wouldn't say Ford hit
That's true.
something, and it's just like a lot of bias. And then if a self-driving car does something, it would be all over the news. What about millions of other accidents that are caused by humans? Like it's it's not that black and white, So to me, it's like I'm open to anything as long as it makes sense.
Yeah, and I think what was interesting to me about the driverless cars, I've only taken them, I think, twice, and they're as expensive as an Uber, and they take much longer for a few reasons. They drive the speed limit, and they get stuck, and then you're sitting there for like 3 minutes, and then inside the car it's like, please wait while a teleoperator drives your car. And so like when the car hits an obstacle that it can't get around, it stops, and then they have like a building somewhere where people are able to like log into that car, take control of it, and like drive it around the cone or whatever's there, and then the car can continue. But on a 30-minute ride, that might happen 2 or 3 times, so you're just like stuck waiting, like a train, like
Wow.
waiting to pull into the station. And so, like I mentioned earlier, level 5 autonomy, the driverless cars able to handle all edge cases. I mean, this is that problem in reality, right? They're always going to need a human operator. And, now you have a human driving the car plus all of this infrastructure and technology. So the prices are still high, but yeah, again, give it time. It'll get better. It'll come
Well,
down.
yeah, we'll see. Like I said, I'm open to anything as long as it makes sense, as long as it's helpful to us. Here is a long comment here from Paul.
As humans, one of our differentiating capabilities is that we can learn from every new data point as we gather them. Oftentimes, learning from those data points requires gathering contextual data as a shape decision making moving forward.
There's
With
more. There is more. The screen doesn't show with AI. Those challenges of loving from level 4 to level 5 autonomous systems is the value of a human
Hey, Paul
feedback.
Puckett, you were at
Here
my
we go.
wedding, buddy. Hey, dude.
Oh, you know him?
Yeah, we're
Okay,
good
there we
friends.
go.
He's like my high school best friend.
Oh, there we go. So yeah,
Yeah, I agree with you. I think what I would say to you, Paul, is currently the models have yet to be able to generalize outside of their training data. So if I train a model to respond to emails, it's probably going to be very good at that. But in the event that I ask it to fly to the moon or discover new physics, it's not going to be able to do that. That said, there have been breakthroughs in the labs recently with O1 primarily being the use case. So you train a model and you'll get some performance out of that model. And then you essentially slap on what's called an A-star algorithm, and it can kind of learn more than it would just with the model. And then from that, you're able to create synthetic training data, which you can then train another model with. And then that new model has more capabilities than that previous base model. But then you can slap A-star on top of that, which will give you even more. And so we've seen the recursive feedback loop starting. And the models right now are, months, half a year apart. But this is only going to accelerate. And I think people don't really comprehend exponentials. I mean, you saw this with COVID. It was like, this isn't a virus. There's no, we didn't have any cases in America. And then 2 months later, like everybody had COVID. There's just no way to conceptualize this. And I think this is how AI is going to probably end up being. I'm curious, how many people are watching? I didn't know I was streaming, but I guess Paul is probably picked it up on my Facebook feed.
So we have around 20, 25 at the same time for this whole.
Nice.
And I'm also streaming on Twitch. And these streams are different than your regular videos because I always leave them on. They will stay there, and then we will have people come in watch them later. So I don't worry much My most popular streams are when I dispatch trucks, and
Yeah, I've
people
seen
love
the
that.
day in the life of the truck driver.
Yeah,
You have several 100,000 or maybe even millions of views
y-
on those. I was just curious
yeah.
how many people are tuning in at 11 a.m. on a Tuesday. So
Yeah, well, most people that are watching are either dispatchers or truck drivers or someone in freight industry, and if they're waiting for a load or if they're in the office like I am, they would just turn on
get
and
off the
watch.
internet, get back to work.
Yeah, no, well, this is our way to cope with the stress, right? You look at someone else having stress, and then you feel better, right?
Well,
Uh,
if I could make you feel better, I think starting this company has been the most stressful thing I've ever had to do in my life. Logistics is not an easy job. You know, it's easy to tell someone, go here, do this, come back. Um, Reality is much more complicated than that. So
oh yeah,
I wish you guys the best. You guys really make our world run.
thank you. Here's
This is
a
all fantasy. I drive a 2024 truck with a huge amount of sensors and electronics. These sensors and electronics fail all the time. An AI truck would require way more technology, which fails. Yeah, I agree with you largely, but when it works, it's going to be better, and over time, it'll be more reliable. So, it's nice to say that like this won't happen tomorrow, and it won't. Uh, but again, you got to take the long view with some of this stuff. Like what we're seeing is it's like we're summoning demons. I mean, I honestly believe AI is like another life form. If you look at your brain and how it's connected, it's the exact same way that these AIs are connected. It's just on a computer instead.
right. Well, but here's a thought on that. Like Serge was saying, I agree with him as well. And the like if you look at trucks 20 years ago or 30 years ago, they are simple, affordable trucks. Same thing with cars. You can fix them yourself. You can afford to fix them. The parts cost 2 or 3 times less than what they cost now. And I wonder, like with all this technology, not just with AI, with everything, it's being um, it's not what's the word affordable for a small guy, small company to afford that kind of equipment. Even with Surge here, like how am I going to afford a truck that has all that technology, and how am I going to afford to fix it? That's the problem that we are having right now with small people like us. We want to stay in the trucking, we want to stay in the business and keep doing it, but not just the regulations, the prices of equipment, prices of insurance, all of that. And now we have more and more electronics coming into play. Like there is no way we can, and if you're not tech savvy, like we have drivers, we have our own app in Unisora Express, our carrier company, and we have some drivers that like they don't know, like it's a simple app. And I understand they're older people, maybe the English is not their first language, it's hard for them to use it. How are we going to be able to use all that equipment, right?
Yeah, I think a lot about regulation. I think the government put airbags in because it was good for people. So that's some technology that costs money now, and the price of the car goes up. In Europe, they're mandating that cars cannot drive over the speed limit more than 5 miles an hour. You know, and so that adds technology. You know, um, there are things that consumers would pay for, like a backup camera. I don't know how I would live without one, but I do think there's something that can be done in terms of deregulating the complexity uh, of these machines. I think a lot about John Deere. They have these tractors that are now so advanced that they won't even allow you to repair them yourselves. There's like a Supreme Court case called Right to Repair, where if I buy a truck or a tractor from John Deere, I should be able to fix it. But John Deere says you're actually leasing it from us forever. And because it's ours, we reserve the right to repair it for you. And so now I can't go to that local mechanic down the street. John Deere gets to price the repairs at whatever they want. And you see how the system perpetuates. So, I see this with Apple. You can't open your phone and fix it anymore. They're designing these things to be disposable. It seems like there are some ways to try and fix this, right? Like build products that last longer or that are modular so that you can upgrade certain components of them. But that also is still very new. Like, I would love to be able to add features to my car after I bought it. I would love to buy the base model, and then if I want something extra, buy it. But unfortunately, it seems to be the other way. Like if you buy a BMW, they'll ship your vehicle with all the features, but they'll turn them off with software. So if you want more engine performance, you'll pay BMW $3,000 more, and they'll push a software update to your car. Oh, you want seat warmers? That'll be $1,000, and I'll just push an update to your car. So they've found that manufacturing one vehicle with everything in it is cheaper than manufacturing multiple different versions of a product. So, I would love. There's a Toyota. It's like $10,000. It's a $10,000 truck. No bells and whistles. These things are bulletproof. They're in Japan. You can replace the bed with whatever you want. You could turn it into a food truck. You could turn it into a billboard, a regular pickup truck. But they're illegal here. So,
yeah, they don't want them. Yeah,
no, I think if you had a $10,000 truck, everyone's going to buy it. And that's going to ruin the business of these car companies. And so then they'll lobby the government to make that not allowed for some reason. They'll say it's safety or some trumped up reason. But ultimately, it's the government just deciding, this goes and this doesn't. And I think that's what ultimately drives up all your prices. So,
okay. Here's one more question. We can take one more question. Yep. And I think we've been on for an hour and 30 minutes.
Match exactly customer requests. So right now we are only taking limited requests right now. We can do certain things. So the way the AI works is you give it what the system refers to as tools. My system can send an SMS, a text message. It can send an email. It has the ability to schedule an appointment with a calendar app. And if you ask it to order you a pizza, it's just not going to be able to do that. So right now, if you're the customer and you tell us that you need a couch removed, the system's going to know that there's a tool that it can do to get rid of that. And the tool is get a quote from a vendor with junk removal. So it's going to ask you some questions that are needed for that vendor to give you that quote. It's going to go to you, ask you whatever it needs. Once it has that, it's going to then forward that to the vendor. And then the vendor is going to give you a quote, and the AI will just pass that back to you. Our hope is that over time, we can add more tools, we can add more services, and ultimately, in a decade, it will become that app that can do everything for you. So right now, again, it's just packing, loading, unloading, driving, and junk removal. I mentioned earlier, we'll do house cleaning, handyman, that kind of thing, hanging a TV. And then I think... we'll branch out into other home services. We'll have to see what our users want. I think there's some interest in like hooking up your cable provider or your internet. Nobody wants to call Comcast, right? There's a way that I could just ask you those questions up front and then forward that information to like Comcast, and then Comcast would pay me a referral fee. So I think that's how it works. Like you shouldn't think of this as like a HAL 3000 or whatever from that, Space Odyssey. It's not an all-knowing, all-seeing AI. It's what's called a vertical AI. It does things within a channel well. So for us, that's getting a family or an individual with a house from one place to another. And we use well-vetted vendors in the middle to connect everything. Our website does say we're a broker, but that was temporary. We're going to have to go through the lawyers again before we actually hit launch on this. But I think, I'm glad there was interest in what we're doing. This is a personal pain of mine. Like when I moved to China, it was the most miserable thing I've ever had to do. And I swore I would never do anything like that again. And, but I like moving, new places, new experiences. And so this company is kind of my way of solving all my problems. And then
you can test it while you're moving every time. Like, oh man,
we have to move. Our landlord just sent me a letter this morning saying our lease is up soon and she wants her house back. So
where are you located?
I'm in Northern Virginia. So about 20 minutes from Washington, DC, maybe 15.
Okay.
In Alexandria.
Okay, cool. I can see snow. So
yeah,
I'm glad you have it, not just we here in Michigan.
Sorry, yeah, just a little bit. Like right there.
Yeah. Well, by the way, I love your lighting is great,
Yeah, thank you.
sound is great, background. It
My
really
wife
good.
wants her
Thank
house
you.
back though. I literally took over the living room. I work upstairs in this little
Oh,
tiny thing that looks kind of like a
yeah,
storage unit, and I didn't think that would be a good background for
looks
a
great.
podcast.
Looks great. Well, thank you for being here. This was fun. Not just for there you go. Not just as far as transportation goes, but also we learned something new about AI and about technology. Thank you. This was fun.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I guess my dog is over this, so I'm gonna
That's
take him out
okay.
now.
It's just funny. Hey, don't go anywhere. I'm gonna stop streaming. Don't go anywhere
Sure,
if you don't mind. Like,
don't mind.
okay, but thanks everyone for
Thanks
watching.
everybody. Thanks for the
Thank you.
question, Paul. I'll follow up with you about that thing I said I was gonna do with you.
Yeah, thanks everyone for being here every time and watching and asking questions. On Thursday, we will have an interview with Nick from RTS Factoring. I hope you will join me for that. Have a great day.